Hey y'all, TRG here, and welcome back to another video. In this video, we'll go over a very significant storm that will impact much of the United States late this week. This will most likely end up being one of our most impactful storm systems in the month of March. So let's go right ahead and get on into today's video. Starting with our GFS 12Z wind speed. So this is generally what we're seeing right now. A high pressure over here near the Four Corners area, and a little trough making its way across portions of the south central and southeastern United States. We could see a couple spin-up tornadoes out here in portions of southern Georgia, southeast Alabama, into northern Florida, but that threat will be relatively on the lower side of things. Then as we get through Monday, that trough will continue to traverse over the southeastern U.S. We'll see relatively zonal flow across the northern U.S. That upper level high pressure ridge will begin to sink back down towards the south-southwest. We end up getting another trough ejection, and this is going to be a trough that could potentially cause some severe weather over portions of the far southern U.S. I don't think this will be a notable severe weather threat, but we could see a couple spin-up tornadoes, some damaging winds, and very small hail here through your Wednesday afternoon and into your Wednesday night time frame. I don't see it being that significant. This is going to be the trough to watch. This is the trough that we've been talking about for almost the last week and a half at this point, and you'll see it traverses the Rockies here Thursday night into Friday morning. It is over portions of the Four Corners area, and then throughout the rest of Friday morning and into Friday afternoon, it begins to completely traverse the Rockies there. And as we get into Friday evening, you'll see a very classic trough ejection here, fully negatively tilted, strong low pressure center, in this case, in this model run, over southwestern Kansas at 2 p.m. Eastern Friday. And then as we go into Friday night, that trough will continue to push up to the north and east into more of the central and northeastern U.S. We'll get into specifics about the severe threat in just a bit. And then as we get into Saturday, we'll see another trough, probably more on the neutral as instead of the negative tilt. That could also cause a potential for some spin-up tornadoes out there in the southern U.S., damaging winds, large hail, whilst we have that remnant severe weather threat further to the north, up there towards Ontario, Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, western New York could see some severe weather out of the remnants of that severe threat on Friday into Saturday. Then into Sunday, we'll continue to see that trough traverse into portions of the far eastern United States. Most likely, we'll end up with the threat for widespread damaging winds, a couple brief spin-up tornadoes, and very small hail somewhere in the mid-Atlantic states going through your Sunday afternoon, most likely quite early afternoon hours there on Sunday, March 16th. Then after that, this is where uncertainty begins to be a little bit higher, as we really are getting far out on this model run. This is 240 hours out, but it looks like towards March 18th or so, we'll probably be dealing with another severe weather threat somewhere in the central United States as we go through around March 18th and the 19th time frame. Before we dive in depth on this severe threat, I ask that you guys hit the like button, share this video with your family, friends, social media, and if you're new to the channel, consider hitting that subscribe button with the notification bell set to all so you know when I go live or upload a video. Let's go right on back into today's video. Getting into a little bit more of your specifics now, we'll start with the Storm Prediction Center Day 6 outlook. They finally have decided to outline a very large area for the chance of severe weather. This is a slight risk for severe weather on their Day 6 outlook, all the way from eastern Texas, a good chunk of Louisiana, in central Mississippi, through all of Arkansas, most of western Tennessee, western Kentucky, southwest Indiana, most of Illinois, southeast Iowa, and a good chunk of Missouri, all inside that slight risk for severe weather on their Day 6 outlook. Zooming it in a little bit more for you, just in case you want to see your area. There's a very high chance that we're going to end up with an enhanced risk for severe weather in this region somewhere. Personally, I think the best chance for an enhanced risk is generally in this vicinity right in here, really dead center of that slight risk for severe weather. Going into Day 7, this is Saturday's risk for severe weather, the 15th of March. They have outlined a pretty good chance for severe weather, slight risk yet again, this time over Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Georgia, into western Florida, and far southeastern Louisiana. I do think we could see a separate 15% slight risk for severe weather introduced somewhere out here in the northeastern side of the U.S. I think that would go as far west as out there near western New York, northwest Pennsylvania. I do think we could see a 15% severe weather risk outlined up in that area for that remnant threat Friday going on into Saturday. But either way, they already do have a slight risk on their Day 7 outlook there for the southeastern U.S. Day 8, I don't believe we'll see a slight risk out here, at least on the Day 4 through 8 outlook here. But we could possibly see a slight risk for severe weather introduced out here in portions of the mid-Atlantic states, as we could end up with, like I said, widespread damaging winds, a couple brief spin-up tornadoes, and some small hail there. But at the moment, no day 8 outlook from the Storm Prediction Center out there for Virginia and North Carolina. Now let's go ahead and get into your ingredients and your overall environment. This is more of the nitty-gritty stuff and exactly what we could see in terms of severe weather hazards. So for Wednesday, this is a little bit of an uncertain part here, a bit of an uncertain day. It looks like we're going to have a mixture of a capped and uncapped environment for Wednesday. So at the moment, there's a little bit too much uncertainty for the SPC to introduce a slight risk out here. And I really can't tell you what's going to happen with this. I do think we could see some brief spin-up tornadoes, maybe some small to large hail and isolated damaging winds, but it's a little difficult if we go to your precipitation type to exactly pinpoint what may happen here on Wednesday. But if we do get that uncapped environment, there's a very high chance we'll end up with severe storms somewhere in Oklahoma and Texas through your Wednesday evening and overnight time frame. Going into Thursday, some isolated thunderstorms up there in the Midwest, isolated thunderstorms, maybe a severe storm or two in the far southeastern U.S. for Thursday, March 13th. Going into the 14th, look how much that changes. Look at this. Friday morning, instability is way down there, still in the Gulf, if not the far south central side of the U.S. And then Friday afternoon, 2 p.m., you get just an explosion of that open warm sector across so many states in the U.S. And then look at that Friday evening, just an absolute classic area of a large warm sector. You've got your huge cold front in here, strong low pressure in here, your large warm front way back up in this area, and overall you just have this giant area for severe weather potential, all the way from the extreme Gulf coastlines of southern Louisiana as far to the north as central Minnesota and northwestern Wisconsin for the potential of severe weather on Friday. Then as we go throughout the rest of Friday, you'll see that general instability start to move more to the south and east. Saturday afternoon, could see a bit of ignition there in terms of some better ingredients out there in the eastern Midwestern U.S. as well as eastern Michigan. Like I said, could see a 15% introduced there. But on Saturday, most likely, most eyes are going to be focused out here in the southern portion of the U.S., specifically where that instability could reach up to 2,500, maybe even pushing 3,000 joules per kilogram out there in portions of eastern Louisiana and southern Mississippi Saturday afternoon and Saturday evening. Going into Sunday, that will continue to push eastward, and you can see here, the GFS has really shifted this north. It only has a little area for the chance of severe weather Sunday evening and Sunday afternoon, I rather should say. So I don't think we will have a notable threat for severe weather Sunday out here in North Carolina, Virginia. Like I said, could see some spin-up tornadoes, maybe some widespread damaging winds and very small hail. I'll keep an eye on it. It could uptrend, so you never know. May end up chasing that day. Now let's go on into moisture. This has probably been one of the more talked about things here in the weather community because it's leading with the most uncertainty at the moment. So for Thursday, we're going to get that system that pushes through the southern U.S., and that could grab some of our moisture here and pull it back on into the Gulf, or overall just halt moisture advection to the north for Friday's risk for a couple of hours. Now, at the moment, the GFS has downtrended on that moisture grabber for Thursday, as we went over just a couple seconds ago. So GFS pretty aggressive with your dew points here as we go through your Friday afternoon and evening. It has downtrended somewhat. It's not as potent and as far north as what it was in yesterday's model runs, but you can see generally 60-degree dew points all the way from Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, all the way up into almost central Illinois, southwestern Indiana, southeastern Missouri for Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern. So if we go ahead and pull that out even further, this is for 8 p.m. Eastern now. You can see that very sharp cold front in here. Your very strong low pressure up in that area. So just an overall really, really potent environment for severe weather directly in front of that cold front. So the greatest risk for severe weather, in my personal opinion, I believe will be focused in this general vicinity right in here. If we go ahead and just pull this back, you can see your moisture is pretty much 60-degree dew points covering most of that area. Now, if we get into like the high 50s, like say 58, 59-degree dew points, that's still favorable for severe weather. We're going to have to just watch out for some of those dew points potentially getting into like the high 40s or low to mid 50s where severe weather won't be as likely thanks to that limited moisture. That would most likely end up being more limited in these areas up here, but you can still see, I mean, the GFS still has 56, 57 dew points up there in Illinois, Missouri, eastern Iowa, southern Wisconsin, so that's still somewhat favorable for severe weather. But this area right in here, what I drew before, right there, that's where I think we could see a couple strong tornadoes, widespread damaging winds, and some isolated large hail. And the reason for this is most specifically because of your storm mode. It looks like, at the moment, it looks like we will see multiple semi-discrete supercells, potentially some clustered supercells as well, fire along that cold front. So I think this could end up being one of our more potent tornado threats for our tornado season as a whole. I mean, being dead honest with you, this setup is very significant for tornadoes, just straight up. And even it's a little far out, I know, but I really do believe that we could see some long track, strong tornadoes through much of that warm sector in Iowa, Missouri, Arkansas, into Louisiana. There's still some question marks, like I said, how strong and how far north will moisture be up here. There's also some questions on limited wind shear further on the southern side of your severe weather threat. But right in the middle, that's where your instability, your dew points, and your best wind shear should overlap. So I really do think we're looking at probably one of the more aggressive and more potent threats for severe weather that we will see throughout this tornado season. I mean, this system as a whole, this right here, this low pressure being almost into the 960 millibars on some model runs, you're really looking at one of the most strong low pressures that we've seen in the month of May. So it's definitely going to be a very, very strong and significant system. Also, don't want to overlook the potential blizzard conditions wherever that snow sets up. Look at how... Let's just acknowledge how tight these contours are. I mean, I can't even draw lines in between them. That is how freaking tight they are. If you don't know what that means damaging winds. We could probably see gusts upwards of 60, 70 miles an hour, maybe even isolated higher than that in those regions, just simply because of how stinking strong your low pressure is. These wind gusts in these very tight contours are going to be able to have gusts of 60, 70. Like I said, isolated, a gust could even be higher than that. And that's going to lead to some very dangerous blizzard conditions, probably primarily over most of South Dakota and a good chunk of western Nebraska going through Friday evening and Friday night. But again, switching gears back to severe weather, again, I mean, just it looks like a very potent threat for severe weather out here for strong tornadoes. Even long track strong tornadoes will most likely end up being a possibility by day one. We're going to have to keep an eye on it. There still could be some downtrends. Like I said, moisture is not the best. It's not the best moisture, especially up here in Iowa, Illinois, and Wisconsin. However, I still think it's going to be enough moisture to promote a notable threat for tornadoes. Like I said just seconds ago, I think our greatest threat for severe weather is going to end up being where that moisture, instability, and wind shear will probably overlap. Southern Illinois, most of eastern Missouri, eastern Arkansas, northern Mississippi, western Tennessee, western Kentucky. That's where I think our greatest threat will be. And then, of course, I think we could have some limited wind shear on the southern side, because if we switch back to your 500 millibars here, you can see your negatively tilted trough is aimed like this. So your best wind shear will be focused on that right exit region in this portion of your system. That could lead for a little bit less wind shear out here in Louisiana and Mississippi. If we go ahead and switch on over to the wind shear, 0 to 3 kilometer, you can see that greatest wind shear. Wow, I actually didn't even know it was that high over this area. You can see that's getting up to 400, I believe. Yeah, and some of that red area could see up to 400 0 to 3 kilometer helicity there. So very favorable wind shear. That's why I believe our greatest tornado threat is going to be focused over that region right in here. It could shift a little north. If moisture goes more north, that greatest tornado threat will be shifted north. If moisture doesn't go as far north and the wind shear starts trending more south, it could go more south. But generally, somebody in here, in my personal opinion, I believe we will end up with a long-tracked, strong tornado threat somewhere in this central portion of that cold front. And also, if we just go ahead and pull this into your nocturnal hours, you can see that wind shear will, of course, begin to increase across the Midwestern U.S. So we'll probably see an overnight tornado threat up there, spin up tornadoes with that line as it pushes eastward. So overall, looking at a very potent, very significant, probably one of the more notable threats for severe weather we'll end up seeing this tornado season, being a very, very real possibility up in this area here. Again, in Louisiana, Mississippi could have that wind shear issue. Further north could have that moisture issue. And in the middle, it should be a perfect sweet spot. I don't normally do this in my videos, but let's go ahead and just pull a sounding here just to see what the GFS is simulating in central Missouri. This would be where semi-discrete supercells fire. So if you look here, you can see this very perfect photograph. So plenty of upper level and lower level wind shear, a lot of turning with height here. You could also see that with your wind vectors. Plenty of veering just to the right of my face cam. Bring it on over to this side. Not really many issues. You can see a little bit of dry air entrainment. That could easily be fixed through the evening hours as we get surface heating. Very easily could be fixed. Good lapse rates up to 7.6. Good instability almost up to 2,000. So overall, definitely a photograph that's favorable for multiple tornadoes. Maybe a strong tornado threat. The long track strong tornado threat is really going to be a bit difficult to forecast this far out. We're going to have to wait until we get cam models so we can more pinpoint where that greatest threat will be, where the instability, moisture, wind shear, forcing, semi-discrete mode all overlap into one area. That will be the pinpointed risk for severe weather, which, my opinion, again, I think it's going to end up being right in the middle of that cold front. Central, eastern, southeastern Missouri, central, southern Illinois, northern, most of Arkansas, I should say, western Tennessee, western Kentucky there. Then into Saturday, this, I don't really see as big of a strong tornado threat with this one on Saturday, even though your ingredients are much higher due to wind shear and just your overall where your trough's located. You could see we have 600, 5 to 600 helicity out there, 2 to 3,000 instability back out in this area, especially if we go back one more into the afternoon hours. You could see that there, 2,000 to 3,000 instability. It looks messy at the moment. You can see how this is probably going to end up being a very messy, linear QLCS spin-up tornado threat for Saturday. We could see some supercells in the open warm sector, but at this point, it's a little too uncertain to call for that. So I'm not as interested in Saturday's severe threat as I am in Friday's severe threat tornado-wise. Of course, Saturday, widespread damaging winds, large hail, and a couple spin-up tornadoes, maybe a strong tornado threat if we can get any supercells in that open warm sector, or a very well-organized QLCS tornado threat there Saturday afternoon and Saturday evening. Going into Saturday overnight, that will continue through Dixie Alley, pushing into the eastern U.S. Sunday afternoon, we'll see some re-intensification probably in eastern Virginia, eastern North Carolina. Not really that good of a signal at this point on the GFS. It looks just a lot less potent of a threat. Very minimal ingredients, instabilities minimal. Lapse rate's pretty good for North Carolina. That's up to about 7.5 lapse rates in eastern NC. Just to take a quick look at it, let's look at yesterday's supercell composite mean run here on your GEFS ensembles. You can see this is for, let's back it up a little bit, it's for March 18th. Not really much of a signal there. March 19th, a little signal. March 20th, not really any notable signals on your ensembles. That's what we'll pay attention to. Not really those deterministics going over 200 hours out. Really want to keep an eye on those ensembles, and they don't really have much of a notable signal. You can see they do have a pretty good signal for a jet stream here, but it looks relatively positively tilted, and overall probably not a, at least at this point, doesn't look like a notable severe threat towards that time frame. We'll keep watching it. It could uptrend. Wouldn't shock me if it uptrends. We'll just need to watch it. And of course, for your signal on Friday, this looks to be like a 974 or so. 973 millibar low there. So just not something. And it even, does that deepen further potentially? Still right around 972, 973. 971 right there. So just an absolutely absurdly strong low pressure for this time of year. early to mid-March. Not something you see very often. So, and again, even if the severe threat does underperform, look at how tight these contours are around the entire low pressure. Look how tight they are. They are literally extremely tight. So you can, I could almost guarantee that you're going to be seeing widespread 60-mile-an-hour wind gust non-associated with the thunderstorm activity behind that cold front and behind and near that low pressure system as well. And of course, right at that low pressure system, just to the west, you could see those blizzard conditions, gust as high as over 70 miles per hour. Would not shock me one bit whatsoever. So, yeah, that's going to be it for your model data here. I have a few more things I want to show you guys, and then we'll wrap this up. Alrighty, I want to show you guys the Climate Prediction Center outlook here over the next couple days. So this is from the 16th to the 22nd. You can see above average temperatures in the eastern U.S. as well as moisture, and below average temperatures in the western U.S. with above average precipitation in the western U.S. as well. What this hints towards for this time frame, March 16th through the 22nd, is definitely a trough. We're definitely going to see a trough out here over the Four Corners area in the western U.S. That would lead to probably an atmospheric river. With the above average temperatures, probably going to end up with a severe threat somewhere in the central U.S. But exactly how notable of a severe threat that may be, well, that's just going to be something we have to keep an eye on. We'll determine that once we get close. Also wanted to show you this. This is your wind outlook. Let's just zoom into this a little bit more because, man, there you go. That's all your wind risk for this upcoming trough from the 15th through the 17th, and you can see all this moderate and slight risk area. It's everywhere. Right? It's literally everywhere. The most of the U.S. is in the slight risk. Matter of fact, the only area that's not, I believe, is up here, is not in a slight risk, and then central southern Florida is not in a slight risk. So pretty much everybody east of the Rockies is going to be seeing damaging winds from this cyclone. That's how you know it is such an intense low pressure. Literally most of the U.S. is going to see damaging winds non-associated with thunderstorms from this. Also, precipitation. It looks like we could see quite the flash flooding event towards the 15th and the 16th. That's with your severe threat on Saturday and Sunday out there in Dixie Alley going into the eastern U.S. So if you do live out in a flash flood prone area, very early heads up for you. Probably going to end up with a significant flood threat on the 15th and 16th of March. Also looking at your snow threat there, of course, they have a moderate and slight risk up in this area. Best chance for those blizzard conditions will be probably on the southern end of that moderate pink area right in there as your low pressure pulls up to the northeast sometime on either like Friday night, Saturday morning. So I don't exactly know the date. I think that would be late on the 14th into the 15th where we would have the best chance for those blizzard conditions there in most of South Dakota, Nebraska, and we'll just keep an eye on that. But yeah, guys, that's going to be it for today's video. This was a little bit of a longer video. I did more of an analysis with this video, so I hope you did enjoy. Make sure you leave a like on the video, share this video with family, friends, social media, as well as subscribe to the channel with the notification bell set to all so you know when I go live or upload a video. And I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. Please stay weather aware as this system looks very significant towards the 14th and 15th of March. And again, have a great rest of your day. Stay safe and watch the severe weather. Goodbye.